Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Go. We're going to cover some news, and I think it's probably the most newsworthy thing to talk about. Have you had
Yes.
any outages that have affected you personally, John?
So personally, no. However, we did have some things that happened, but nothing major. So obviously, with everyone running Windows in their organizations that are obviously operating CrowdStrike, yeah, we had some folks that had to manage their systems, but it's the way it goes.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that something happened this week. It's been all over the international news that Windows PCs have failed everywhere. And I've heard a lot of finger pointing at Windows or
It's not.
Microsoft directly, and it's like
It's
it's
not.
not really something that they
It,
did. This is a software, a third-party software for security
mhm.
called CrowdStrike, and they basically pushed an update that had something wrong with it, which we'll get into, and it's pretty broadly used, so it caused all kinds of mayhem, especially in the airline industry. I know like Delta's affected very badly by this, and
Yep.
then our our Congress is like, we're going to have a congressional hearing on Delta, and it's like, how is it their fault? Like, trying to figure out why everybody's like shooting the messenger on this one. Um, it wasn't Microsoft, it wasn't Delta, it was this CrowdStrike software. So I did some reading through this, and I guess this software drops some kernel level drivers on the system. So they probably need to be at that level of security access on the device, because if you get a virus, the only way to get rid of it is to be at the kernel level to wipe it out. Otherwise, the virus like keeps replicating. And if you've ever had one of these things, uh, they're they're hard to get rid of. Like we've all had those viruses where you like go in, delete stuff, and then you think you've got the virus out of your system, you reboot, and it magically appears back. They like replicate themselves back into the system. You really need something at that higher level of security access to get in there and wipe that stuff out. So I'm assuming that's why it has that kernel access. Um, Even things like anti cheats for video games have this, because in order to detect those cheats, cheats have this cloaking ability similar to viruses where they can dodge certain systems because of access level. So I'm assuming that's why it's there. And because it's there, it also allows an error like this to completely take down the system. So they published this update, and there's a feature in the update, another software that it uses. Um, I guess the file had a sys extension. It was not itself a kernel level driver, but something with this quote Falcon sensor, which is another software, which
So
we
here's
have.
here's the here's the gist of it. I've done a
Mhm.
lot of reading about this.
Yes,
So basically, it was
please.
a configuration file that was corrupted. It had a bunch of null. It was a null file basically, and it went through a component. That configuration file was read by what's called a validator, a sensor validator,
Mhm.
that would validate. In this case the configuration file, but did not have enough, I guess. It didn't sanitize the inputs. It didn't trust the inputs. It trusted the inputs more than it should have, and didn't have any checks to see whether or not values were null, and that's why an exception was raised. Now, when you raise an exception at the kernel level, Windows will automatically blue screen for good reason. You don't want to corrupt data. You have to
Mhm.
blue screen at that point. This is common practice in a Mac. You get a pink screen. You get also reboots happening there as well. So as well as Linux. Having corruption there is not a good thing. The real story here that I think people need to know is that people will obviously point fingers at Microsoft and say, well, why didn't you, why is this necessary for an AV vendor to have kernel level access to do its job. Why don't you provide APIs for them to do the same thing, but not run in user mode as opposed to kernel mode? And the answer to that is they did. They did provide those APIs back in the day, like way, way back in the day in the early 2000s. They proposed a set of APIs that would give AV vendors enough of a insight into what was happening under the covers, such that they would be able to do their job effectively. But the European Commission said no. Basically, they were concerned about these APIs giving too much control to Microsoft, and they wanted to. So it was really the European Commission, from what I've read, that thwarted this proposed new API. And so it kind of remained in a kind of weird situation. You may remember that the European Commission was looking at Microsoft back in the mid 2000s, and this was related to that. There was Windows Defender had just been recently
the whole
announced.
antitrust thing.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. So basically that stems back to why those APIs don't exist, or why AV vendors continue to run in kernel mode like this. Now, the post that you're currently showing is the preliminary retro from CrowdStrike, and it's a bunch of gobbledygook. It doesn't make it. It's a lot of just. It doesn't go to the level that people need in order to understand what really happened. It does, but it doesn't. So essentially what happened was this configuration file got through their unit testing, got through all their checks, and was basically was sent. They say in the post got to early adopters, but then after that they just basically shotgun it across everywhere. And I'm looking at this situation. I'm like, you don't do this. You do rolling releases, set up canaries, and so they talk about this at the end. The meat of this is at the end of the post. So yeah, right here, where they talk about basically what they're going to do next. And basically what it is local developer testing. That's a given, right? But it's also about giving a staged approach to doing their releases. And this is really where
rollout.
Correct. And so this is I can't believe they didn't do this. Like, they just basically shotgun it across, buckshot across the entire internet. And this is why it was so pervasive. So
they did the Oprah deployment. They're like, you get an
that's
update.
Right. You get an update. You get
everyone
an update.
gets an update.
So it's checks like this can't happen in kernel mode. You can't you have to be able to thwart anything that's coming through, and it's your own code. It's essentially they DDoS themselves basically by doing this through this configuration file. So the long and short of it is that
null reference exception of all things.
Yeah, this basically comes down to a poor deployment strategy, basically. And incidentally, my colleagues and I will have a live stream later today talking about this. We're going to talk about deployment strategies on a live stream and how this might have been mitigated if they had used canaries, rolling deployments, etc. The fact that they don't have a canary deployment model around their rapid response content. Now, the rapid response content is because AV vendors have to almost live minute by the minute for detecting sort of these sorts of potential threats, and so they need a way to notify their clients or agents. Hey, look for this. And so in this case, it was like something to do with name pipes, but they have to have a means by which they can propagate these out. But the fact that they're not utilizing it in a canary or rolling deployment fashion is a problem. For those who don't know what a canary deployment is, a canary deployment is you designate a subsection of your target deployment stack. So you say, like, these 5 people over here, they're gonna act as canaries. We're gonna issue a deployment to them, and if everything looks good for the next 24 hours, 48 hours, then we can safely assume that by and large it will continue to run, assuming also that our local checks have panned out, and then we can use we can roll it out to a new set of customers, then another new set of customers, etc.
Yeah, this reminds me of a much smaller and isolated incident I might have mentioned on the show before. We had some enterprise level software that we were running, and I was responsible for deploying it. And it had been a good 6 months since I had touched like any updates on it. And then all of a sudden one day it just stopped working, which brought the entire business to its knees. Not this company, by the way, one I used to work for. And like, IT's pointing their fingers at me, and I'm pointing my finger back at them, like the Spider-Man meme. And they're like, "Well, you installed something that broke this," and I'm like, "I haven't changed this thing in 6 months. There's no reason it should just randomly fail." And then I ended up getting out Telerik Fiddler and finding that there was like a spacer.gif that was 404ing, and it was crashing the entire the entire software, which in turn took the entire business down.
Yep.
And it was because of some firewall update that they pushed. But it's like, why did we write, and not we, but why did anyone, developers, write software that a GIF determines whether the entire software can crash or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
It's about also trying not to make any assumptions, especially with networked resources. In this case, what they did was it wasn't a malicious file. They basically sent a file that was corrupted
mhm.
to themselves, and they didn't check to see whether that would ever happen. And it's again comes back to don't trust in any input. Don't make any assumption. Try and fail as fast as possible in your own code. Like the way I structure my methods and functions now is the first top of it is like just trying to, it's defense in depth. It's just trying to just say at every function level, like, are we still in the assumed sort of state that we should be in? Is the file not corrupt? Does the validator
Yeah.
itself has to guard against this, which is what failed. But c'est la vie.
All right, we're going to get into some .NET Microsoft news. We've got ILSpy for macOS. This is the
Yeah.
first public release of ILSpy. What is an ILSpy, John?
Yeah,
I know what it
ILSpy
is,
is
but tell the
a
folks at
.NET
home.
it's a .NET decompiler with support for PDBs. So these are the files that are generated during the debug build. This is a great tool for debugging and for figuring out what's happening underneath the covers. So ILSpy is something that's been
Intermediate language. Right?
Correct. So these have been around for a very, very long time, and I just happened to catch this. ILSpy for macOS is something that's important. I will admit that macOS as a target for a lot of folks who are writing .NET isn't the biggest target or the biggest demand, but the fact that they did this is good.
Yeah, it's nice to see that it's available at other platforms now. Stay tuned for Linux release coming next week.
Well,
there we go.
In a sense,
but wait, Linux. There's more. We got like the Billy Mays like line there.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Mac is essentially Linux. So
yeah, it is these days. .NET 6 is reaching its end of support November 12th, which I would assume is the launch of .NET 9. Just because those dates line up that way. I would expect there's a new release coming if this one is going away.
Yeah, this is just important for folks who are targeting .NET. They're writing software and like, oh, that's right. We have, that old, like to your point, that this program that I wrote 6 months ago, there's software sitting out there, covered in rust encased hard disks that are continuing to run critical infrastructure. So just be aware that if you have apps that are floating out there running on .NET 6, it will end of life. That doesn't mean it won't stop working. It just means that if you go to Microsoft for support, you will not receive it. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Like you should continue to. It's kind of like tending to your garden. Like you have to weed your garden every week or every day to figure out to make it look nice. You should do the same with software. You should continue to tend to your old apps that are out there. And even if that just means let's test it out on the .NET 8 runtime, or in this case, .NET 9 when it ships. If it runs, then let's see if we can get the client upgraded.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of breaking changes between most modern .NET, the .NET quote core base, .NET 5 and up. There's not a lot of breaking changes between those. So you're pretty safe to changing your target framework and things will just run. But as our discussion earlier, make sure you test and canary those things. If you're rolling something out, don't blast all your servers at once with an update. So test it out, see if it runs locally, and it should be fine. I don't see a lot of hiccups transitioning from 6 to 8. This just jumped out of nowhere on us.
Yeah.
This is coming quick. Like this is
Yes.
usually you get a little bit more notice on these, and I think some of the folks involved are probably putting things together in short order as well. .NET Conf Focus on AI. This is something that just like hit us out of the blue. So they're having a special day of .NET Conf that is focused on their AI platform. And it's going to be a lot of mixing, .NET stacks with AI capabilities. So I had a roster up here. I don't know if they moved the cheese,
They may have
or
moved the
maybe
cheese.
I might have had a page that wasn't released yet when I found it.
Very
But
good.
there was a list of speakers at one point, which were mostly internal folks. Let's see if I can find it again real quick on stream here. Let's see. Oh, it redirected back. They took the page down. There was speakers and things listed. They may not have had those solidified yet, but yeah, be prepared for integration topics like Blazor and AI and
AI, all the
other
things.
other ASP.NET varieties in AI and Maui and AI, that type of thing. That's what they're going to do that day. So it's a
WinForms
virtual
in
event,
AI.
probably.
Visual Basic 6 in AI. Sorry.
COBOL in AI.
Yes.
Why not?
Actually, that wouldn't be so bad.
It's probably already there. All right. So yeah, tune in. It's a couple weeks away. It's about a month away ish. 3 to 4 weeks out. So make sure you check that out and see what all the AI news is about. Get your chat GPTs integrated into your ASP nets.
Sweet.
Into your .NET Aspires. So they just had the Aspire Day, by the way. If you didn't catch that, John, I don't have a slide here for it, but I caught a little bit of the Aspire
It's
Day
that
of
meme.
Aspire, or whatever
Aspire
it's
is so
called.
hot right now.
And there was some AI talk in there as well.
Yep.
So
As there should be.
yeah, Steve Sanderson was there talking about semantic kernel and .NET Aspire. It was a pretty good talk. So if you haven't seen it, just hit the YouTubes and look for Aspire on there. You'll find it real easy. So during that day of Aspire, they announced that they released 8.1. So 8.1 was released.
Nice.
So there's some new features with container images, orchestrating Python code, new resources and components. So these are all like the plugins. They like to call them components that you can add to your pipeline inside of Aspires. New stuff there. New metrics dashboard. They've got this nice dashboard that comes with Aspire. I don't know if you've taken a look at that before, but
Nope.
they've added some new features to that. They keep evolving this. I've been kind of watching some of this stuff as it develops. I haven't really tinkered with it too much myself, but I've been paying attention to what C# Fritz is doing. Over on his channel, he's building an app called Aspirify. It's kind of like a blogging, hosting platform type of thing. It's pretty cool. So
Nice.
you can check that out sometime and on C# Fritz's channel on Twitch. This next topic, shifting gears a little bit. It's just a fun thing that I stumbled upon. Somebody tweeting about. I don't know about you, John, but you're visiting websites and you see a nice button. You've visited, you've clicked the button, you admire the button. Why not steal the button too?
Okay. Sure.
This is a Chrome extension.
I've seen this.
Have you?
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
So it collects buttons from various websites that you visited. So I guess if you're a UI developer, designer, web designer, this might be of interest to you. So this is the button stealer. You just kind of catalog all the buttons you've seen, maybe
like
inspire you to build your own button, or steal blatantly the button that you love the most.
Hey,
But it's available for Chrome. And what is that? What is that icon?
don't
What?
know.
It's a browser. Which browser
Yeah.
is it? It's one of those ones that it says
I have no idea.
Chrome Web Store, no matter which one I click on. I have no idea what that icon stands for. Somebody in chat? Anybody? Is that like one of the, like, I don't know. There's a couple off-brand browsers. All right. We had a good post last week that you brought up, John. That was like career things like that happened over so many
Yeah.
years of coding. I
Yeah.
found this one. It was 15 programming tips to improve your productivity. It kind of reminded me of that in the same kind of token that we went through last week. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of these as seasoned developers. Maybe there's some folks out there that are newer and don't have these things in their arsenal yet. One of the first ones, it seems kind of obvious, but it's not if you're new to programming. Getting, harness the power of Git. Git is like super powerful. The biggest undo redo system you could use for coding. So if you're not using Git, make sure you get Git. Go to GitHub, start an account, all of that good stuff. Version control, 101. Make sure you've mastered Git. Number 2, automate.
That, but there you go.
Oh, you don't like Git? Do you like source safe?
I don't. Oh God. Please. That's like saying like so you don't. So what you're saying is you don't like version control. Like yes, of course I do. But yeah, I think Git can get pretty gnarly. This is independent of what provider you use. GitHub, GitLab, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it can get pretty gnarly at times. So start looking at like branches and cherry picking and all that sort of stuff, and commits, and it can get a bit gnarly. So let's not forget, like Git was made for the Linux kernel development. Linus Torvalds and Linus were working on it, and they thought we needed source control. So it's grown, but I would say it's still gnarly, and for a lot of folks entering it, I think it's a challenge. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
But learn it. Yes, you have to. You have to. It's what it's the de facto today. Yes.
Yeah, if you're trying to get a junior level position as a software developer, you should probably
use Git Kraken.
know.
Use Git. Just use a tool. Don't try and use the command line for now. Once you get your calluses built up, then go to the command line. Command line's awesome.
You should probably know the verbs of commit and
push,
rebase,
pull, cherry pick, yada yada yada. Yeah, sure.
And then automate repetitive tasks with
duh
scripts.
Pretty much.
This is kind of another duh one, but this is what we do, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get into software development because I'm good at solving problems. I got into it because I'm lazy.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no better way to be lazy.
I know. I would go even further. Use a workflow tool. Use a tool like Workato or Zapier. Make life simpler for yourself. Pay for a workflow tool. All tools, Slack has workflows, Teams has workflows. Workflows are everywhere. They are the jus of everything. So anything you can automate, more so than just scripts. I know when people say with scripts, people get frightened. They're like, I don't trust myself to write a good script. It's fine. There are a lot of tools now support workflows, and they're just integrated naturally within the product. Use workflows for repetitive operations, and it's amazing what you can automate. I mean, Jira has automations, Monday has automations, Slack has automations, and they're all called workflows, basically. So that's, I think, more important than just writing scripts. Those are get the stuff that so the things you can automate, I'll give you some examples. Reporting. You can automate reporting, like to tomorrow, right? So you know how developers are always frustrated, like, I got to tell my manager what I worked on, blah, blah, blah. And then I have to send it to everyone, and then I have to do a report on it, blah, blah. Automate that stuff. Gather the data through a background task, automatically send it out on a Monday so you don't have to do it, and it takes that mental weight off your plate. Yep. Obviously, integrated testing, use a deployment tool like Octopus Deploy. Hey. So there's ways in which you can automate your CI/CD pipeline. That's a given. That is a well-known problem space that has been solved. But there's other things as well, like you can write a ton of GitHub or GitLab actions that will automate processes. So when a PR is closed, maybe send a note via Slack to the rest of the team. Hey, this PR is closed, for example. Or when you do a release, send a tweet or a message to your website to update the release notes. These things you can automate so that you don't forget, so that it is automated and it just happens. These and other things are going to, when you start automating stuff as a developer, you no longer carry the mental weight of managing a software project, and you can relax to focus on what you love, which is writing code.
Exactly. This is going to be one that you like, John. You love logging and logging libraries. You've introduced us to a couple on the show. So
hey, command,
debug
console, printf. Come on, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody at work about this the other day. We were capturing some data with an exception. I was like, we should probably just start logging this stuff.
Yep.
And we can use the logs.
And it's more than just that. If you can log to a local file if you want, you can log to a local repository. You can log to SQL. You can log to anywhere. You can also log to third-party providers that give you analytics on top of that. Datadog, Sumo Logic. There's tons of providers that are out there. We use Sumo Logic, for example. It's great. It's more than just logging. It's also like notifications as well around this. And this really speaks to, if you're going to do that and you're going to maybe ship functions, you can also incorporate feature flags as part of this as well. So you may want to look at things like launch darkly, for example. So there's tons of solutions out there, and it will save you a lot of time trying to figure out why did this fail in production, if that were to occur.
Yeah. We're not pointing any fingers. CrowdStrike. All right.
That wouldn't have helped them. That wouldn't have helped.
Probably not.
No, it wouldn't have. When you die in the kernel, no one can hear you scream. Trust me.
Prioritize your tasks with the Eisenhower matrix. I'm actually not familiar with this. What is the Eisenhower matrix?
I would imagine it relates to the former president.
And the movie. So. It's a mashup, y'all.
Oh, no? I don't think so. I think it's basically a grid that gives you so urgent, important, or yeah, okay. So it's basically a 2x2, and then you. It's sort of like the Magic Quadrant in a sense, but your axes are urgent, important, not urgent, not important, and you just delegate tasks. Sorry, I didn't know this was called that. So I've used this before.
Yeah, I can't remember which they fit on, but it's this is.
Up and to the right, that's important. Down and to the left, not important.
Yeah. So if it's down here, you're not working on it. If it's up here, you better pay attention to it right away.
There's also the ones that are top and left and bottom and right. And so those ones you either want to delegate or schedule.
Manage your time with the Pomodoro Technique. This did not work for me. It may work for you and others. It did not work for me.
All right. So the Pomodoro is a timer. It's a tomato timer that was popular back in the day for cooking and stuff, and you would just turn it, and then that would tell you basically when the timer went off that your cake is done or whatever. And so the idea is that you would use one of those and give yourself 20-25-minute intervals to do just work. So no YouTube, no Facebook, no TikTok, whatever, just work. Then at the end of that, when the timer goes off, then you can, all right, check your email, go back on social. Give yourself another Pomodoro for that, 25 minutes for just, fooling around, whatever. And then going back to a 25-minute spin. And if you can get 7 or 8 done in a day, that is a super effective day.
Yeah, this did not work for me. So it was okay. Let's start the timer. You know what? I bet there's an app for this. Oh, there's an app. Cool. Let's find the best app. Let's find the best Pomodoro app. Oh, cool. Let's put some skins on the Pomodoro timer because that would be cool. Which skin do I want? Do I want dark mode? And then I was like, all right, this is a distraction for me. I'm not the target audience for that one.
All right.
Squirrel. Yeah. So optimize
Sorry.
your default or your development environment, your
Yeah.
IDE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
So,
But more so than that, save your changes somewhere, meaning save your configs somewhere, whether it's your dot configs or and it can go beyond just your ID. You can persist these to GitHub. You can persist your macOS settings to GitHub, and those macOS settings include everything, what brew packages installed, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all kinds of ways in which you can store your configs. Basically, just optimize your environment, then persist that somewhere so that if you blow away your machine, you want to reconstitute it, you can.
yeah,
And
and there's
you can optimize
services
everything.
too.
Yep.
What's the Microsofty one? The develop, yeah, whatever it's called. The one that hosts like VMs and
DevBox.
DevBox. That's it. Yeah, there's DevBox. You can do a literal VM. I used to do
Yep.
that back in the day.
Yep.
But yeah, customize it. Get all the plugins that you need.
Yep.
Big fan of plugins to do stuff.
Yep.
To, as we said earlier, automate tasks, that sort of thing. Incorporate code reviews and pair programming. Yes,
That one's
I like this
self-explanatory.
one.
Yeah, that one's been known for years.
Yep. Have friends look at it, peers look at it,
Yep.
coworkers look at it.
You can enforce this, by the way. You can actually
stand-ups.
you can set this up in policy in GitHub, for example. You can say I can't accept a PR until I get one approval or many approvals.
One of my favorites, write clean and readable code.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. Definitely easier said than done. There's another bullet point in here that kind of segues nicely with this one, which is practice test-driven development.
I don't agree with that. Practice is the optimal word here. Don't enforce.
Yeah, that
don't
is
mandate. Yes.
That is what I
Practice.
meant as well. So I like where did it go? There we go. I like to do TDD katas that practice writing readable code. So I like to do like there's like the poker scoring. There's a bunch of those type of things, right? Where you can go in. Somebody, I think it's our Dallas Steve Smith, has the kata database.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. He's got like a kata catalog. There we go.
Yeah. I would also go one step further.
GitHub.
I'd also go one step further on this. Sorry, what is this catalog?
Yeah, I'm going to drop this one in chat because this is really cool.
Okay.
Steve Smith is an author, MVP, .NET developer, trainer, and he has this coding kata catalog. So these are exercises that you can do to get better at coding. And there's things in here like scoring a bowling game. I don't know what Builder and unit tests is, but there's FizzBuzz, there's Hangman, leaderboard, prime numbers. You get the idea. Tennis scoring. These are all just things that have some kind of relationship with real world problems. So you can solve them and have something to write code against. And sometimes there's different rules with these. I don't know if it's any of these in particular, but I've seen them where they'll do like, all right, score a bowling game, and then there might be like a refactoring section in it, or do it again. This time only use functions. Don't store state anywhere. Like I've seen like crazy stuff where it's like you have to use an array for everything. Like they're just challenges that get you to code better. Nice. So check those out. So he's got quite a list of them inside of his kata catalog there, which I put in chat for everybody. So that's a good one. I like human readable code. And
I'm just about to say something about this. So human readable code, which I think you're still showing the code catalog, but so there's a tendency amongst junior developers to be told, and I don't understand why, comment every line or make sure you add comments. I would argue vehemently, and I'll fight you to the death on this, comments can be a distraction. be judicious and be careful about how much comments you put into your code. In fact, I would argue strongly that your names of your variables, your functions, your classes, the way you structure your code is far, far, far more important at making it readable than any comments would ever make them. And more often than not, I don't know about you, but like I'm kind of like Cypher in the Matrix. I don't even see the Matrix anymore. I just see blonde, brunette, redhead, whatever. His basically he's saying the same thing, which is the comments are almost getting in the way. It's kind of like lint in your dryer, like just get out of here, sort of thing. And I would argue that comments are not as helpful as people think they are, and they often tend to make your code a little bit more opaque in terms of understanding it.
I definitely agree with that. I think the code should represent the comments instead of commenting the code. You should be able to read the function name and know what it does. By
and
the
where
name.
this comes from? You know where this comes from? It comes from people who are really, really strict about how they name variables and really, really strict about how they structure code. And this whole practice of like various variable naming cases and stuff. I think the reason why it got so unreadable is because you had these corporate sort of compliance policies that your code has to be written a certain way, and it became so unreadable. It's kind of like reading an instruction manual versus Hemingway. If you read beautiful code, it's like Hemingway. It just flows off the page. You read it in no time flat. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. But if you read one of these corporate code files, for example, that perfectly passes their linter, it's really hard to grok. It's really hard to understand what it is that you need to do, what this code's actually doing. So I would be very, very, very careful about how much comments you put in your code.
Yeah, I've seen newer folks too who have learned like off of samples that are like, var x equals whatever, and then they actually code like that, and they've got like every letter of the alphabet representing some variable. Sure. I've run into this stuff in the wild and actually had to refactor some of it. So it's like somebody had like var x, y, z, and everything in between. And it's like, you can actually put names here, right? And I went through and rewrote all of that code and gave it back to them. And they're like, I didn't know you could do this. Like, I honestly didn't know like this was a thing.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's not their fault. They just don't know.
No. So, there's a lot of easy stuff that you could do, like Boolean values, give them is, has, can, that type of stuff, prefixes, and so on. And keep learning. I guess that goes into the next one. Continuous learning. I think that's a given as well. Manage distractions and create a focused work environment as you watch
the show. Pomodoro.
Right now,
don't watch this show when you're coding. A couple of yahoos.
Maintain healthy work habits prior to sleep, hydration, stretch, get up, stretch.
I would say more important than that, because we're sitting down all the time, and let's face it, our industry is not known as the healthiest industry on the planet. Exercise.
Yeah.
Do something where you're breathing heavily and sweating a lot, not just go for a walk. More than that. You have to break a sweat, that type of exercise. Get your head out of the code. Go lift some weights. Go throw clang and bang, as we like to say in the Olympic weightlifting sort of thing. Like, throw around some weights, get that stress out of you, because it is a stressful job. Get your mind out of it, then come back, and then you're refreshed.
Go play VR.
No, do not go play video. Please do not go play video games. Go outside.
No, I didn't say video games.
Go outside.
I said VR.
Go outside, get some sunlight, get some vitamin D going, and then lift something heavy, pick it up, and if you need cardio, just do it faster, okay? So just lift something heavy a bunch of times, and then come back, shower, then go back to your code. You'll feel amazing.
I'm gonna put you in my VR and let you play.
You're not. No, you're not. Stop.
Let you play my boxing game, and then when you're completely gassed and sweating all over yourself.
No. I don't want this. I'm gonna go outside. Thank you. Please stop. Please stop.
The problem
is this?
Because Because it's the future, John. It's the future.
It's not. It's not.
Well, Meta thinks it is, and they are betting $87 billion
Good. Let them bet. Great.
that it is.
Great vow.
They are purchasing, and I hope I say this right, because an Italian-based glasses company, Excelsior Luxtica. Yeah, that's a mouthful. They're buying this Italian-based glasses company, and this
Great.
is something that they're going to possibly incorporate with their Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses.
Good.
So they're putting $87 billion on the line.
Yeah, seems
to buy
like
this
a
up.
good value. Seems like a
And-
good way of spending money. Yeah.
And with that said, we've got Meta Quest is getting AI before Apple Vision Pro.
Great.
So in the latest update of the Horizon OS, this is I think version 68. I don't know if it's mentioned here in the article. I don't see it. In version 68, you will be able to look at things and press the Meta button, the menu button. You think you double
Amazing.
tap it, and
Amazing.
you can say what's happening in front of me, and it'll tell you.
Oh,
There's a
it's
monkey on a skateboard.
Incredible. It's incredible.
He's got a red T-shirt on.
Fantastic.
And yeah, or it's
You know what you could do?
uh,
It's even better and healthier for you. Scroll up that picture again for me, Ed. See that guy holding that headset? Replace that headset with a dumbbell. And and then you're not in your office, you're outside. Way better for you. Trust me. Sorry I keep harping on this, but just get outside.
You could say, Meta, what is John Bristowe's expression right now? It'd be like grimacing.
You have a reality outside. Like the resolution is amazing. You know.
I heard it's HD.
Yes.
All right. And then finally,
What are you
Apple
doing?
Vision. Better yet, what the heck is Apple doing? Apple Vision Pro 2, everything we know so far
Still
is
too
that they are
expensive.
still
Still too
disconnected
expensive.
from reality.
Oh my god.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
They're still
No, it is
woefully
intended.
disconnected.
No, sorry,
from,
it is intended. This is ridiculous.
From their consumer base. Rumored to be $1,600, which is still 3 times what it needs to cost.
At least.
And this is the caveat, right? Okay, it's $2,000 less than their current model, but has no hardware on board. So it's basically a PC VR device at this point.
So you got something around your hip, basically.
So you're tethered to another
something
device. So instead of including
this is all speculative. This is all rumor, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of it's rumor.
Okay.
But instead of having the onboard processing power for $3,000, you now have a $1,600 device that also requires a $3,000 PC or Apple PC, running God knows what to power it. So this sounds like another disaster in the making. I don't see this going anywhere.
Yeah.
They are just tripping over themselves trying to figure out what to do, and I don't understand it. They have all of the pieces to make this a reality and still manage to fumble it all and make a mess out of it.
I think it's because no one understands I think people understand there's a potential for VR and AR to take off. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
However, not at these prices and not with the current form factor. And like I said before, we need a quantum leap in battery technology before any of this stuff kind of takes off. And I don't see this going anywhere, Apple or otherwise, Meta, whatever. I don't see any of this stuff going anywhere until you get the same type of battery life that you get out of your phone. That you have to outcompete the phone here. And think about it. The ecosystem around the phone is massive. People aren't going to buy a phone and this, I think. Yeah. So this until it's
not at that price.
This is just hobbyware, in my opinion, until such time that it isn't.
It's a glorified dev kit.
Yeah.
for the prices that they're throwing out there, and then to go, well, now it's cheaper, and then have a requirement on another device that's probably even more than the original device on its own was,
Yep.
is really just a complete loss of touch with consumers.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's all I've got for today, John.
All right.
Any parting words
Go
besides
outside, lift heavy
confessing
things, go sweat, come back,
your
apply
love
those.
for VR?
Yeah. That's right. Just get outside, get some vitamin D.
Or put on one of these and do some boxing. It's really good cardio.
Don't do it. Resist.
It's good cardio, John. It's really actually good workout. So yeah, I've gotten into quite good shape just off the boxing in VR.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
No, you have not.
I have too. Well, we'll have to talk about it on another show, I guess. It's become a thing.
This is becoming like a sort of, it's like a live version of the movie They Live, where, instead of putting on the glasses to see, you put them on, and then you're, in this reality where it's like obey everywhere, so resist. Do not put these on. Sorry.
So the game on Meta that I'm talking about is called Thrill of the Fight.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Thrill of the Fight. The graphics are not great, but the boxing experience is quite good. It's actually
this actually looks pretty scary
God,
to
that's
me.
loud.
Yes, this looks really scary to me. I could easily see myself. Look, I would screw up here. I would punch a wall or my TV or
I have done that
by accident. Yeah.
I have hit a wall.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with the boundaries on it.
Yes.
But this is one of the best ones, by the way, and it's only $9. There's like 3 other games, and the boxing mechanics are bad in those games.
Okay.
The boxing mechanics in this one are pretty good. They've had some actual like real fighters and boxers try this out.
I could see this being good if you did like a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out type motif where, you made it like Glass Joe and Raging Bull and all that sort of stuff. And like, I love how in this trailer, the person who's doing it is all taped up. Like she's gonna like really box something. But I could see this being like, Piston Hurricane, that sort of thing. Like I remember those games back in, the reason why those were fun was because they, like, if someone were the, like, rather than making it realistic, just make it like 80s retro, I think.
So they've done a good job with the boxing mechanics in this one. It has, if you're worried about punching your wall, you can do pass-through mode, so you can actually see your room and the fighters in the room with you.
Yes.
And with the Meta headset, it will track your calorie burn, your fitness level, that sort of thing.
Okay. I don't mind this so much. This I don't mind. This is fine.
Yeah.
Sorry. I sound like so snobby. I will allow it. Sorry.
This game will completely gas you.
Okay.
Especially if you don't know what you're doing. So I actually went and took boxing classes after playing this to not necessarily to get better at the game, but just because it piqued my interest. So I was a lot less gassed for 2 reasons. One, because I was in better shape. And then 2, I knew what I was doing. And like I said, the fight mechanics are actually pretty good in this.
Yeah.
So you're not throwing wild punches and wearing yourself out. You're actually like, targeting the opponent and doing damage.
Just remember, and I speak from experience, having been in a few fights in ice hockey because I play still. Your power comes from your hips when you box. It doesn't come from your arms. You turn your body. Your core is what gives you your power. So when throwing a hook or throwing an uppercut, use your legs because that's where you get your power. Yeah,
you can hurt your arm actually playing this pretty bad if you're
gonna pull out a shoulder. I know I would.
Nuts.
My back and everything would just go.
I had
too old to play this.
Like the kids are like I can't believe a video game's wearing you out, and I'm like, all right, give it a try. And they're 3 minutes in, and they're on the ground taking the headset off. They're like, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, what happened?
It's because they're probably windmilling. They're when you windmill, it's hard. It just blows out your shoulders. So
yeah. So that's a good exercise routine, believe it or not.
There you go. I like that. All right.
I'll leave it at that.
You convinced me that's a good one.
I sold you again on a Quest.
I'm
Mark
not
the
buying
tape,
it.
folks.
I'm not buying it.
As soon as we hang up the stream, he goes on VR. I bet you.
Sure.
Just he
Yeah.
goes bananas on that thing.
That's right. All right. Here we go. This is my
Bird,
VR.
bird simulator. Here I come. The show's
That's right.
over. All right, guys. So we'll talk to you all next week. Take care.